All right, so Islam Makhachev obviously dominated Jack Della Maddalena over the weekend. He's the new king of the welterweight division, which is also on fire right now. Literally, the welterweight division has never been hotter than it is today. And with a few really good wins, Islam Makhachev could be the greatest welterweight fighter of all time easily, and probably considered the greatest pound for pound fighter of all time by any unbiased person. But the next three fights that he takes are super important. So let's first look at like who are the options, and then we'll get into who he should actually fight next. First, we have Kamaru Usman, right? This is a pretty obvious choice. Great wrestling, proved against Joaquin Buckley against Hamzat, right? Like he was able to shut down Hamzat Chimaev, the most like threatening, offensive submission wrestler that exists in the UFC right now. He was also able to offensively wrestle and completely shut down a guy in Joaquin Buckley that was going around the welterweight division, basically just shutting even strikers out, using his own wrestling to dominate people, was looking like he might be on his way to his own title fight, and Kamaru Usman just stopped that right in its tracks with beautiful offensive wrestling. So he was also a super active champion, short notice fight against Hamzat. Like, that built Hamzat's career. The UFC sort of owes him for that. Honestly, without that fight, I don't think Hamzat gets to DDP as quickly as he did, right? So we might not get another chance to see this fight. Either Kamaru Usman versus Islam Makhachev. Like, if Kamaru Usman fights somebody else and it happens to be a loss, good luck ever making this fight happen again, right? And vice versa. It's like if Islam fights one or two more times and retires, then again this fight's done. So I think we all want to see this fight, don't we? Like the most recent welterweight king, the guy that reigned for ages, that a lot of people thought was like equal to or potentially even better than GSP. Don't you want to see Islam Makhachev tested against that level of fighter? And it's not like if Kamaru Usman fights another time, he's going to get a lot better or anything like that. He still thinks he's the king. Let's just get him while he's not going to get any younger. His knees aren't going to get any better. Let's get him in there now is the argument, right? But the other thing would be seeing Ali Abdelaziz turn his back on Usman for Team Khabib would just be hysterical because like obviously at this point he's going to pick Islam and Khabib and everything, and I could easily see that becoming some drama. But we move on. The second option, another obvious one. Oh, actually, before we get to that, I just want to show you what Usman and Henry Cejudo had to say, because this is a massive legacy fight for Makhachev. That's the other thing. It's like, who else would Islam want to fight? I know I even think he said he wants Usman next, but watch this.
After Jack, I think Kamaru Usman. She's saying, I win. I want the smoke from the greatest welterweight of all time.
If I was in their position, what would I want to do? When I was the champion, I wanted so bad to fight a guy like Georges St. Pierre. That big guy, that legacy. And of course, the cha-ching, because that's the biggest name that would sell the most. You want to fight the biggest, best name, because that's probably what's going to rake in all the fat moolah.
Now that Islam said that, you're sitting in a good position, bro, to where you could be the next guy for that title shot. If Islam Makhachev does want to fight against the Nigerian Nightmare, it's going to happen, bro.
Yeah, totally agree with all of that. And this is the biggest money fight for Islam. It's the biggest legacy fight for Islam. There's no better time to do this fight. I think you guys can probably see where I'm going with that, but let's move on to the next option. The next option is Ilia Topuria, right? The first ever double champ versus double champ fight. There's been BJ Penn versus GSP, but that actually happened before they had both belts. And definitely not while they were like, BJ Penn wasn't on a streak of like holding both belts and GSP. Like we've never seen a fight like this in the UFC. Like this is the biggest super fight you could ever make, or we've ever had the chance to make, in my opinion at least. It's also interesting that Islam refused to fight Ilia until he had a win at lightweight, but then bailed to welterweight before he could actually fight him at lightweight. And Ilia seems to not mind. He doesn't mind going up to welterweight. He just wants to beat Islam Makhachev, right? Do I think it can happen at welterweight? I don't know. I think that's a big ask for anybody, right? But if this fight never happens, Islam will also overtake John Jones as Dana's #1 pound for pound duck. Okay, I'm sorry, he will never be able to be, in my books, the number one pound for pound greatest of all time if he does not fight Ilia Topuria, the guy who's been calling him out and chasing him to different weight divisions. If this fight happens at welterweight, I'm still gonna feel like this is a bit rigged, honestly, like not fair for Ilia. Like I almost don't even care about the belt being on the line and would prefer to see it at like 160, something like that, 165. Like 165 just seems like at that point just do 170, but whatever. Anyway, moving on to just what Ilia Topuria had to say about this. After the Islam fight, Ilia goes, Jack needs an entire camp dedicated just to wrestling. What a disappointment of a champion. You should go to Georgia to learn something. Islam, you need something you can't train. Emotion. You're the most boring thing in this game. Every day I'm more certain I put you to sleep. Right? And this, he makes some interesting points. Like, he does have phenomenal wrestling. If you saw his fight against Charles Oliveira, that grappling was insane. And he was a wrestler first before he was a striker, right? And he does have the power to put anybody out. And he's calling out the champ. Like, yes, I want to see this fight. Everybody wants to see this fight. You got some of the stats over here on the right, and this was before Islam's fight on the weekend. But 17-0 versus 28-1, like both completely undefeated in title fights. They both have wins over Volkanovski, Oliveira. Islam has Poirier. Ilia has Holloway. Like, this would be a gigantic super fight from two guys that, yeah, Islam has that one loss on his career, but other than that, like in reality, he's pretty undefeated. You can, if you did the Sean O'Malley math on it, you could say that Makhachev is undefeated because it's not like he really got defeated by Martins. He got knocked out because he was doing something really dumb, right? But you run that fight back 100 times, Islam's going to win that 100 times because he's never going to let that happen again. He will just hold Martins down if he has to for 15 minutes to win that fight 100 out of 100 times, right? Anyway, moving on to the third option, Carlos Prates or Michael Morales. You got two active welterweights. Like the last two people that we talked about, Kamaru Usman has not been active. And you have one win out of your last 4 fights, right? Ilia, you're lightweight. You got to go defend your belt. Do something over there, right? Like both of these guys really have to defend first before that super fight could really eventuate. Carlos Prates, Michael Morales, you've got two really active guys that just put on amazing performances. One against the champ, like the ex-champ in Leon Edwards, who had never been finished. And Morales beat the guy that beat that same ex-champion first. And it's on a night where it mattered more than anything. Like this is the biggest night to have this type of performance because you've got the championship fight happening in the main event and everybody's going to tie you to that moment, right? So which of these two guys should get the shot? Like, just regardless of what we talked about with Kamaru and Ilia, it's like if either of these two were to get the shot, who should it actually be? Should it be Morales who beat Brady, who beat Leon Edwards? Or should it be Prates who's just been, ice cold, knocking everybody out and probably is going to sell more, get more viewership, more excitement for the fight. He's got the whole fighting nerds thing going on. And also, like, which of these two guys actually has the best chance against Islam? I don't feel like Carlos Prates has a shot against Islam at all. I think he would get taken down and submitted in one round, honestly. Morales, maybe because of the size, like he was able to make Sean Brady seem so small that crossing that distance was so hard, and he just got him out of there really quickly. So I think that Morales would have the better shot, but I don't know. Here's the thing about the Ilia Topuria Islam Makhachev fight really quickly. This fight has to be on the White House card. Okay. Imagine a Russian and a Spaniard like fighting on the White House lawn for the viewing pleasure of the American elites, right? This would be the biggest flex for Dana White, Donald Trump, the UFC, America in general. And that's what the White House card's about, is like flexing American superiority, right? Whether you like it or not. I'm Australian, brother. Like, I don't, but That's what it's about. Getting a Georgian Spaniard and a Russian to fight each other on the White House lawn. That's peak America right there. You know, again, both guys just got to defend their belts first to really make this the biggest fight ever, but you got to put that on the White House card. So Islam's like, okay, BDH, okay, Big Dumb Harry, who should I fight next, brother? All right, Islam, here's what we do, bro. So we start by first you take out the previous welterweight king to really prove your GOAT status, right? TKO by calf kicks to the knee, because the wrestling's just going to cancel each other out. And after about 2 rounds of those same calf kicks that Islam was putting on JDM, Kamaru is going to be literally in a wheelchair getting out of that octagon. Next, you give Ilia the same chance and make the biggest fight ever at the White House, right? You give him that same chance to become that like triple champ GOAT, get that welterweight belt. Could you imagine if Ilia Topuria became a triple champion, beating Islam Makhachev? He becomes the pound for pound GOAT, no question. No question. You start at 145, you go up to 155, you beat all the GOATs in devastating knockout fashion along the way, and then you chase the previous lightweight king up to welterweight, where he's now the king there, and you destroy him there. You're the pound for pound GOAT, no question. Right? So that would be huge. And at the same time, if Ilia can shut that down, oh my goodness, then you just need one more fight. So if you win that, I bet you thought I was going to say it has to be like the winner of Carlos Prates versus Michael Morales. But you're wrong. First, don't tell me you forgot about the Eurasian sensation, Shavkat Rakhmanov, 19-0, 18 finishes. This was the guy that was meant to get the title shot, right? But he was injured, and so JDM took it, beat Belal. Based on what I saw on the weekend, I think that Shavkat would have destroyed Belal, and he could have had that fight with Islam, so that's very interesting. We need to see what happens there. Also, this weekend is the battle for the cringiest mother effer title. Right? Like, you get Belal Muhammad versus Ian Machado Cuck Gary. This is going to be probably... I don't like either of these guys, honestly, but this is like a huge fight to really see who's big. And recency bias. Honestly, how bad is Belal Muhammad? I'm going to make a totally separate video on this because I can't understand how JDM can perform so badly against Islam, but so well against Belal. And I just think when you factor in some of Belal's wins against like Wonder Boy and the way that he did that by basically just holding him down and not really doing anything, not actually using the position, I feel like Islam would have, subbed Wonder Boy in 1 round. Very similar to how he did with Dan Hooker. So it's hard to say who wins this. I'm leaning Ian Machado Gary. I'll make a picks video separately, but either way, if it's impressive and it's the last of these welterweight matchups, there's a good argument that these guys should get that next title shot as well. So here's what we do. Red panty night for Islam! Islam Makhachev fights Conor McGregor! We go Kamaru Usman, Ilia Topuria, Conor McGregor. You get Team Khabib versus Conor McGregor 2. Biggest fight of all time. Huge, massive numbers. Conor comes in, head kick KOs Islam, takes the belt, walks off into history as the actual first triple champ, and totally completes this whole narrative arc for Conor McGregor. Redeems himself in his new spiritual mission with God. No, I'm kidding, guys. We put a 4-man bracket together, the scariest 4-man bracket you've ever seen in the welterweight division, bar the cringe fest that's happening this weekend. You get Michael Morales versus Carlos Prates for the most devastating striker in the division. And then you get Shavkat Rakhmanov versus the winner of Ian Garry versus Belal Muhammad for probably the best game planner in the division in reality. Or like the person with the most versatile game to beat Islam, well, let's say, I think would be that side of the bracket. And then the winner of those 2 fights, basically those fights could happen while while Islam's fighting Usman, right? And then the second fight could happen while Islam's fighting Ilia at the White House. You could even put that fight on the White House card as well. Could you imagine if you had like Carlos Prates beats Michael Morales, Ian, or yeah, oh God, there's so many ways to do it, right? But basically, like, you see the winner of this, the final of this bracket on the White House card with Islam versus Ilia also on that White House card, just setting up that next welterweight fight. This would be huge, massive. I wouldn't be surprised if somehow Conor McGregor like beats Michael Chandler though, and does actually get a fight with Islam. So I guess we'll see. But what do you think? I think that this is what we do. You start with the best welterweight champion in recent history. You then go to Ilia for the second fight. You then have that 4-man bracket. Winner of that for the third fight. If Islam wins those 3 fights, bro, you're the pound for pound greatest fighter of all time. No questions asked. I don't even know how you would ever beat that. I don't know what you would have to do to beat that. You would have to do like triple champ and basically the same exact thing, completely undefeated. Like, it would be ridiculous. So these 3 fights are literally the key to becoming the best fighter of all time in almost everyone's books, unless you're just completely biased and have something against the Russian people for no reason. Seriously, right? Like, even as like I was rooting for JDM, I don't like to see him just get smushed by Islam the whole time. But you tell me, if he beats Usman, Ilia, and the winner out of these 4, that he doesn't go down as the king after everything he did at lightweight? Come on. Anyway, if you like the video, let me know. Likes, comments, subscribe, all the stuff. I would really appreciate it. And if you like this type of content and want to see me make more of it, let me know. I'm enjoying making. I'm sort of thinking about it like a pitch deck for MMA. Anyway, let me know what you think. See ya.